Right, welcome back to Bocchi the Rock episode 12, the discussion. If you haven't seen a reaction yet, probably you have, but if you haven't, it's right up there or the description down below. And let's talk about it, right? First things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? The elephant in the room being the bottleneck. Let's talk about the bottleneck. Holy fucking shit. I've looked it up, and that is fucking cool. I learned something new about music today, and yeah. Let's actually go to the point. All right. I don't know if I can actually show this. I probably have to go into OBS and see if I can change the settings. Because I want to show my mouse. Right, now it should actually show up. Okay. Now it should show up and I should be able to actually show this to you. Okay, so for any of the uninitiated, which is me as well technically, because I know jack shit about instruments. I do know a little bit something about music itself, but not about instruments and not about notes. But here we go. What broke was her E string. Right? And these little things, right? These things here are called frets. Normally you use them in order to change the length of the string, right? The length of the vibrating part of the string in order to change the pitch of the tone that you're using. So if you have the E string, the first fret, which is kind of this thing here, right? This space between the first official like fret thing and the hilt of the guitar. If you press it down there, it's an F, right? And then it goes to a semitone between F and G, and then it goes to G and whatever, right? And so that's the way you can modify how the guitar sounds in general, right? And what broke was one of the strings. So what she did was she did actually use the bottleneck in order to be able to freely move between these frets, because if she presses down the bottleneck, if you see like here, if she presses this down, it doesn't matter where these different frets are and where she kind of presses onto them. It only matters where the bottle itself is, right? And bottles like glass has very clear audio thing, so it isn't disturbing if you put it down, right? If you press it down on the guitar hilt. So she uses that to basically freely move between those frets and the semitones and whatever in order to compensate for the E string actually being broken, which is fucking insane if you think about that. It's really cool, and some real musicians have been doing that. I've seen like 1 or 2 videos in my research that I've just done there. So That is fantastic. I've learned something new. I even learned a little bit something about how a guitar works. That's fucking amazing. Like, I always wanted to play the guitar, but never picked it up. Right? Never learned to read notes in school, which we did have like lessons to that, right? In the official curriculum, but I was never really all that interested in it back in the day, right? Because it seemed very drab and boring, and probably also due to the way our teachers did teach these lessons, right? And all you get taught in like middle school and junior high and whatnot is like stuff about like classical music, and you're not interested in classical music as a teenager. So yeah, very interesting to know, very cool to know. We're gonna disable that cursor and get back into it. The Culture Festival. It ended sooner than I actually expected. I expected this whole episode to be the rest of that, but we did have, to be fair, like the socializing and the friendship part of the Culture Festival before, right? We did have that in the last episode, and we did have the fun and the funny parts and all of that stuff. So this was the culmination. This was the grand finale, and I do like that we took 2 almost entire songs to just let the atmosphere breathe and let us take in what's been happening here. We do have the dad in tears about his daughter, and we do later hear that the mother doesn't know that much about music, but she can tell that she's playing very well, and I mean, she sees how emotional the dad is about the even. I mean, he even bought the camcorder, which we've heard like in the last episode. So yeah, he's been really, really rooting for her behind the scenes, as we found out with like the YouTube money and all of that stuff. I do love that you do something you don't see sometimes what other people do for you and how much attention they pay to you, right? How they are focused on you, and how they, right, in the back kind of watch out for you and care about you sometimes more and in other ways than we actually imagine. I think it's, by the way, it's very crazy, and I just recently really realized that it's really crazy expensive to have concerts or recordings of an actual band, because you have to have all of these microphones, especially for drums. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. We have that little moment where Nichika is like, well, what do I do? Because everybody's shopping for guitars, but I'm the drummer here and I'm feeling kind of lonely and left out. And also, it's not just there. It's also in recording, right? You need to like have 5 microphones to properly record drums in a proper like sound quality and whatnot, which is insane if you think about it. I mean, obviously these days you can do it through like artificial means, but that's not the same thing, right? It doesn't contain the authenticity of an actual recording of a session. I do love like this look on Rio, but she's always been like the most put together person in the entire band, so she's got her shit down. The only problems she has in quotation marks is her actually fucking splurging on other people in terms of like money and always wasting her very well off money that she has. I do love all of the gazes that we're exchanging. Even Rio's kind of, I think, singing a little bit along to that song, right? I do like that depending on the song, we do have different involvements of people, and that's also true to nature oftentimes in bands. The bassist sometimes does some background singer job in a way. And Bocchi does realize that Kita is playing better, which is amazing. The lyrics are insane as well. We matched that up in the beginning. We do have the lyrics about the culture about schools, right? Basically, right? We sing about the classroom and all the familiar sights and all of that, and just like that it feels like this isn't for me. And then, but she thinks she's gonna remember it all. I feel like I like that thing. Like I like that line a lot. I feel like the wind's leaving me behind. Kase ni yoite karis zore. So I'm desperately clinging on. Hishi ni korai tsuiteru. Is that right? Tsiteru. Yeah. Really cool because it kind of aptly in a metaphorical way describes how Bocchi feels oftentimes, right? That things are happening too fast for her, that there's things happening and she's worrying about them, right? She's overthinking them. And she's standing still while everything else is moving around her. And she feels like she's not gonna catch up to all of the other people who are doing all of these things and seemingly don't have that much of a problem, that much of an issue with doing these things, not as much as she does. In the smell of the classroom, I love thinking about what it was like, right? She says, I would like to be in that situation, right? Or I want to be in that situation that I'll look back on that and just remember it fondly. Which is a very cool introduction to the culture festival itself, right? Like I feel like this is the first song you would play at such an event. I do also like that Nichika's sister looks very, very proud throughout this entire episode, right? She seems relatively emotional. Also, holy shit, that outfit. Holy shit, that outfit. That looks really good on her. Yeah. But yeah. We do have that little band interaction that a lot of young people don't mind, right? I mean, me, I don't mind that either, right? But Rio is like the classist elitist. The last episode or the episode before, she was like, nah, people don't like that introduction. They just laugh to humor the people. I think that's just you, Rio. I think that's just you. And Hitori's fans, which amazing. At the mention of her name, they perk up, and it's great. And we played the second song, which is like, first of all, what are those goobers doing here? They're now like hardcore fans of Rio. You see them next in line just after Kita just getting a mental breakdown over what Rio is doing, and then them right behind being like, that's how I imagine it. The second song is more about no, I've always been alone. Interesting, right? This way we're singing about like connection, friendship, love, maybe even. If only I could become a constellation with you, right? Stars. And that is kind of the theme with Bocchi, right? She does want to become a star. She does want to be that shining light for other people. And that's what motivates her. We have been talking about it many times in this reaction series, that her main source of motivation is being a shining beacon for other people, right? That she wants to do something that makes other people feel good, where other people do thank her and admire her for it. And while this in itself might come across as very selfish, right? I do want to get the attention, I do want to get the admiration and whatnot. It also comes from a place of just wanting to bring joy to other people, right? And we do see that in Bocchi. At the very beginning of the series, trying to better herself in order to not let Nijika and the rest of them down when she worked for the first time. And every time we did have these moments where things were looking rough, and her failure would have not just meant her own failure, but also the failure and maybe the sadness and pain of other people, and her stepping up would have meant bringing people joy, inspiring them, maybe even be an example for them. She stepped up for it, and she stepped up to the plate and showed them what she is made of. Those are character-defining moments, right? Because as much as you like to be in your head too much, overthink things, be too scared about certain scenarios, as much as that's the case, there's also there's a lot more to it than that, right? Because it is those crucial moments in which how you act defines not just how other people feel about you and think about you, but also how you think about yourself, right? And that oftentimes more than anything else, right? That your perception of yourself changes in those moments, and that's what happened for Bocchi in many of these cases. She got a lot more self-confident, confident enough to play in front of a full crowd of people, as opposed to a couple of like a handful of people in a tiny dark club that felt like her own room, right? Her own closet, in a mango fucking cardboard box. So yeah, that's insane. That's amazing. She can't use the B string now. Okay, the B string, I thought it was the E string. She won't be able to do her, so maybe it was the B string, I don't know. Maybe I'll just... Either way, it's the same technique, right? The bottleneck, which is fucking amazing. That she's just so aware and so like adaptive in this very moment, right? She's thinking hard about these things, she's getting anxiety, she's getting almost overwhelmed, but she has made enough positive experiences to come to the point that she's like, no, panic is not gonna overwhelm you, right? It's not gonna be the end of the world, I'm not that, right? I need to improvise, adapt, overcome. Memes aside, it shows that she's very creative. It shows that she very much knows how to handle herself, right? She very much knows how music works, how her guitar works. She knows her craft. And that is impressive in and on its own, and I think it made an impression on everybody. And I do think about, when I see things like these, right, shots like these, I do think about the reflection of what she's been dreaming about, right? All of these daydreams she's been having, where she's like standing in front of a stadium, a crowd of people. This doesn't look too different, right? This doesn't look too different. I mean, it's another scale, right? It's a low, like it's a smaller scale, but it doesn't look too different. People cheering her on, being just absolutely in awe. And the interesting thing, she is almost breaking down on the inside. When you think about these things, these people we admire, right? All of the, what do I know, like improv actors, the creators, the musicians, the live performers, all of these people standing in front of a crowd, and we think, wow, they're not phased, they don't mind that at all, they live for this moment, right? And yeah, that applies to Bocchi here, but I would bet that a good deal of those people, especially in the beginning of their careers, but even maybe later in their careers, at specific moments where it's very prominent, right, or where they feel not as right, as mentally stable as they would otherwise feel, that they are in moments where their inner world is almost crumbling down, but they somehow hold it together. And it does look, to the outside, it looks like they're perfect. It looks like they're just inhumanly amazing, but they're very much human. And we need to keep that in mind, I think. I think that is something we need to always keep in mind, that they are ultimately absolutely human, and that we are not, nobody is immune to these effects, even though for some people it's a lot harder than for other people. But I think I'm very proud, and I would be very proud if Bocchi was a real person, of Bocchi, that she actually managed to do this and improvise and come out of herself. The interesting thing is, one thing we have been observing, right? Amazing shot of the eyes, by the way. One thing we have been observing is that Kita pays a lot more attention to Bocchi in the last couple of episodes. There's almost this absolute admiration. I would almost say it's going into the romantic, but not quite. But it's very, very strong. She's got some very strong feelings of admiration for Bocchi, which I think is amazing. We do highlight another aspect, that getting to know a person who is who is very talented, very creative, right? A very nice person on the inside, and they're in the process of going through an immense step of their own personal development. That can be very inspiring for people around you, right? That can drag them along and get them to form their own goals and opinions. We don't just exist in isolation. What we do reflects upon others, and others reflect upon themselves, based on our actions, based on the things we go through if we share them, based on the actions we take. I did love this one. That was a fucking amazing shot. I'm gonna speed it up slightly. This one, where she's just taking a breather and looking up at the ceiling for a second, and that was such a beautiful, beautiful moment, I feel. Yeah. Amazing concert. She's putting her on the spot here with like the public speaking is one of the main things where people are like, that's one of the criteria where it's like, clinically, right? If you want to decide if somebody's got a social phobia and not something else within like the anxiety spectrum or whatever, there's like a couple of scenarios of which a handful, right? Like a specific number have to be ticked, where we say like, okay, in one of these scenarios, people need to be like excessively anxious, right? Like have concerns and anxiety that is going way above what you would normally expect in such a situation. Because everybody's nervous in front of a crowd, right? Unless you do that every day. Everybody is nervous in front of a crowd. But the extent to which it is, and the extent to which it causes, either on an emotional level, on a functional level, on like a work-related level or whatever, suffering for the person itself, right, and hinders them in what they're doing. That is how we define a problematic, right? Like a maladaptive behavior, right? That is how we define a disorder, so to speak. Say something funny, she just dives into the crowd, but the crowd lets her fall. Honestly, first of all, just gain like plus 100 respect from Hiroi. And from Rio too. Even though she's laughing about her, she's like, right, you're a legendary rock star. Yeah. But there's this connection that we have mentioned later by Kita shortly, right? They have this little mental connection, Bocchi and Rio, on that level, right? When it comes to music, when it comes to these rock things. But yeah, everything went out well. This is what I mean. We do have these close-ups. We do have these eye shots. We do have these blushes. There is a lot of positive emotions from Kita towards, beautiful frame, by the way, towards Bocchi. Admiration, right? Looking up to, wanting to live up to her expectations and wanting to help her when she is actually in trouble, when she's feeling bad about things. Hiroi screaming for an after party. You have drunken enough. Stop it. You did drink enough. Go home. If you even have a home. Holy fucking shit. And before Hiroi just sleeps in the club all the time. And we do have the thing with the dad, we talked about that, right? The money and the YouTube money, which I think is really cool, right? Ad money from like, she has 30,000 subscribers. She has a lot of fucking views on her music videos. Music videos are popular anyway, right? Because you can replay them oftentimes. So yeah, definitely. this is so cute. The sister on the side, the dad just very excited, gung-ho about it, the mom looking... It's so fucking cute how much they care about her and how she doesn't, right, peek that. I mean, she realizes it in some way, but she doesn't really realize the extent of it. And that's what I said in the beginning of the reaction video, where I was like, okay, sometimes parents don't realize the gravity of what's happening to us in our private lives. That goes both ways, right? Sometimes we just think that's the case, and then we don't realize how much they actually paid attention to us and how much they care for us in the end. This song has been a big hit with all my friends lately. I sing this all the time at karaoke. The chorus gets everyone so high. My boyfriend loves it. The dad's like, how are you lying like this? How can you look yourself in the mirror lying like this? It's like, I'm so proud of you, right? With your YouTube and whatnot, and getting better at music and getting into a rock band. But holy shit, girl, you need to stop lying. Kind of you do, right? This is like the social white lies of Bocchi, because she doesn't want to be in a situation where she disappoints people or where she comes across as being like a loner or whatever. And I'm like, I understand it, but girl, you need to stop. It's time to stop and be honest. Because I feel like a lot of people who listen to your music could probably relate a lot to some of the thoughts and feelings you have. I mean, obviously don't share everything online, right? Online space is an open forum, right? There's anonymity to a degree, right? People can identify you if they know you, right? There's some like blurry lines here, but and obviously don't share all of your vulnerabilities. There's a problem with that as well, right? People can take advantage of that, but sharing your personal experience and some of your struggles, especially if it's maybe after you've overcome them a little bit, or after you at least processed part of it, I think that can give you a lot of feedback where people are like, yeah, I feel the same, right? Or I had the same thing happen to me, or I have the same struggles, because it's oftentimes you are not alone, and it's more people than you think, and it's not as bad as you think, and you don't come across as crazy, right? All of these things. The thing about quitting your job and being absolutely fucking in a great mood, I can relate to that, right? I mean, most of the jobs I've had in my time were really fun for me, right? Oftentimes it's like, yeah, I do this job only or 90% to earn the money. but I wouldn't be doing the job if I would hate it, right? If it would suck. Obviously, that's a privileged position. I am aware of that I did always have the privilege to have the financial security with my family and everything, to actually be at the point where I'm like, I'm not reliant on getting job X, Y, Z. I definitely need a job here and there, right? I need a job, and it's making my financials a lot more stable if I do have it, but I never actually needed it. I mean, at this point, I do need it. At this point, I do need it, right? And I am reliant on it. But at this point, I'm also at the point that my education, my educational history has put me on a spot where I'm not forced to take any job, right? Any job that is doable for me, right? I can choose which. Well, at least within like a very limited range, because I don't have my degree yet, but I can choose jobs that are less straining when it comes to certain things, and that are better paid than like the average person, even though I'm still taking student jobs, obviously. And I think that is a privileged position, right? That is great. But I do relate to, like, I had a couple of jobs where I was like at some point fed up with them, and I was like, you know what? I'll take the decision, right? I'll quit. I'll look for something else beforehand. And when you were in that moment where you actually had something else already lined up, and you were about to quit that job that you were kind of getting sick of, it feels really great, and you don't even. It isn't even that bad anymore, which is very interesting, like a very interesting part of our psyche, where the suffering we have as humans often comes from the expectation of suffering, right? It's similar with anxiety, but let's focus on suffering before we talk about anxiety. The thing is, if we have pain, right, and we don't know when the pain will end, right, and it's very likely or plausible that the pain will go on for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, for months, then it is infinitely more painful and unbearable for us than if we know exactly that the pain is going to end tomorrow, right, or in 2 hours or whatever. Even if you have a very sharp, uncomfortable pain, if you know like in an hour it's gonna be gone, then it's a lot easier to bear for us, because we do have that awareness of what the future is, right? We do have that awareness of future perspective. There's some of the animals, most of the animals probably, but I'm saying some because we can't be sure, right? At some of the animals lack, right? When you see, for example, an ant that has a crippled leg or something because, right, something fell on it, or you have a butterfly with a wing that is slightly damaged, right? And you feel like, holy shit, that thing must be suffering, but it's only suffering in the moment, right? It's not suffering. There's no mental suffering from knowing that tomorrow or the day after the pain is still gonna be there, or being afraid that at some point in time you die from it or it gets worse. Which brings us to anxiety, which is very interesting. One of the reasons people get anxiety attacks and panic attacks, or rather one of the reasons that is maintained, right, and gets worse and worse as time goes on, and worse as we start avoiding the situations we're getting ourselves in with, right, that we're anxious about, is that first of all, obviously, by avoiding the situations that make us anxious, we are getting rewarded by the aversive stimulus, which is the thing we're afraid of, not appearing, right? It's not here, so you do have like positive reinforcement through things that we don't want, right? That are painful or uncomfortable for us, staying away from us, right? We not experiencing it again. But there's also like a big deal about the fear, the expectational fear that we have, right? We are expecting oftentimes not only the that when we're in the situation that we can't handle it, but also that the fear we're experiencing, the heart palpitations, the adrenaline, right, the sweat, all of that has no limit, right? Our expectations is that it's exponentially getting worse and worse until we basically die, right? That is the worst case scenario. We just fucking flap over and die. That is the fear of people, right? But what actually happens in the situation itself, and one of the reasons why exposure is so effective, because if you look at studies, exposure therapy in 80 to 85% of the cases across different phobias, if you do one session of exposure therapy for around like 2 hour, right, a 2 hour session or something like that, 85% of the cases become significantly better, right? Significantly less suffering from this anxiety, from this phobia. And that is because we form a social contract, right? We have some social pressure in this case. This is the same with Bocchi when she just tries to, well, she doesn't form a direct social contract that she promises people things, although here and there she does it, but she has this sense of duty that she wants to do these things for other people, and that gets her in the position that she actually stays in the thing, right, in the situation that that is creating anxiety for her, which is the same with exposure therapy. We form a contract. We're like, okay, I promise I'm not going to run away during this exposure, and during the exposure we're just gradually getting the object in vivo, which is like in person, right, in reality. There's also in vitro, which is laboratory, right? We can do like in sensu is also what we use in terms of like the terms that's like in the senses. We imagine the thing, which can be a good approach to actually get us to maybe get used to the idea, right? But the first thing you do in exposure is set expectations, right? It's start to get like prepared for this session, and then you go into the session, and the stimulus in the beginning is very far away, right? The object of our fear is very far away, and we promise though to stay in this situation until the thing is resolved, and the person who is doing the therapy actually has to do the thing themselves. So if they're treating a spider, like an arachnophobia, for example, they do have to take the spider on their hand themselves, right? And show that there's nothing fearful about it, which is also a challenge for some people probably, right? But we are getting closer and closer to the object, and the thing is that the object is getting placed to a certain distance from us, and we experience that fear and panic, and it goes up and it goes up, and at some point though it doesn't go up anymore. It stays on that peak, right? And when it's on that peak, after a short while we realize, hey, it's not getting worse. And in that moment we realize that it's getting less and less, right? And it's going down and it's going down, and we need to wait, right? We need to wait until it's like a significant amount, like half the anxiety and fear we've been feeling, like feeling wise. That's why it's very important to be connected to the person that we're doing that session with and asking them, how do you feel now? And then it's getting closer, right? The fear perks back up, but it goes down after a while. And it's very important to stick this through, because then we make the experience that the fear is not infinitely increasing, that the danger is not infinitely increasing, right? And we're getting into the situation where we are realizing that the fear was infinitely bigger. The expectation of the fear even was infinitely bigger than the fear we've been experiencing. And the fear we've been experiencing was also a lot bigger, a lot more severe than what the actual danger of the situation is. And I think Bocchi has been experiencing that step for step, right? In her own, that is the impressive thing, right? On her own volition, she did it herself. She put herself constantly, obviously she was egged on here and there, asked, right? Roped into social contracts, roped into promises. But that is her mechanism. That is her mechanism to actually get what she needs to do in order to overcome this, which is people relying on her, people believing in her, right? And in her not wanting to disappoint them, and wanting to help them, and wanting to be there for them because they were there for her, right? They gave her the opportunity. They were nice and friendly for her. They welcomed her. And that's what you need, a welcoming environment, encouragement, and opportunity. And the motivation to actually change. And that has always been inside of Bocchi from the very first episode on. She was like, I wonder if I can also change, if this is something, right? This was the whole reason she got into music, where she was like, maybe through music, I can do it. And I think maybe music helped her as well, because there's this thing in psychology where it's like talking about something relieves your stress a lot, right? It kind of talking it off your chest. That's a real saying, right? I think it has a real effect on you. It can really influence you a lot. You can de-stress you a lot. It doesn't solve the problem, right? It doesn't solve the problem. It only temporarily solves it, but it makes it a lot better, right? And I think her expressing herself with her music, connecting to other people with her music, that has been a big aspect of this and a big helper for her as well. I think art might be similar to that, although it depends what kind of art we're talking about, right? But it's also a matter to, it means to express yourself properly. And I think it's very important to express yourself and be understood. She's reaching new heights. Wants to pry her into not working again. But, you know, right, the social pressure, we just talked about it. It puts her back into, okay, I guess I'll continue working. It's good for her in that case, right? I think exposure is always good for people who are anxious about things, unless you don't prepare them beforehand, right? I don't think it's okay to expose people to their fears when they are not prepared to stay there or promise to stay there. When they're not prepared, it's even happening, because then you traumatize them even more, right? Because what happens is they are exposed to it, they experience giant amount of fear, they flee the situation in some way or another, right? And the consequence of this will be that they will not learn that the fear is going away at some point, that they will have made yet another negative experience in that specific situation, right? And that they probably have had a lot of physiological symptoms like heart rate going up and whatnot and panic, and it's making it worse, right? But if you prepare them, and if this is coordinated and you're like, we're gonna do this, then exposure is always the way to go. Rio, with her vast knowledge of music industry and whatnot, and I think it's great that that Nichika actually convinced her to go and buy it in person, because first of all, they have an outing, and Bocchi enjoys that too. We do know that, and second of all, it's way cooler if you buy something very expensive and also something you're gonna use later, right? You do something that's very important to use, right? And that also is maybe connected very heavily to you feeling right for you, right? That you are doing it in person. And her fucking nightmare ideas about what's happening when she's like, when she's going into a music store and somebody asks her questions and she's answering it correctly. I find that so fucking adorable, that little Bocchi hanging on her hair. I'm not sure what she's doing here. I don't quite get the joke. Maybe she's impersonating somebody who knows what they're doing. Or she wants to shake off that little Bocchi in her hair. I don't know. Either way, nice little gag about like the metal thing. And Rio's just going wild. She's just making an impromptu session here. Nichika feeling left out as the drummer. Right, we talked about that. That is a cool gag with the doll, right? The ventriloquist, I think that's how it's called, doll, where Kita's literally talking for her the entire time, which is how it works with ventriloquy. Holy shit, that word is so hard. But yeah, she's a lot more attached to Bocchi. You do feel that in the last couple of episodes. A lot more intimate with her, which had really surprised me and I didn't see coming in the beginning, but it's a great development, I guess. And we're making plans for tomorrow, right? Getting getting her stuff started, and this is basically our end sequence. All 4 of them going along, just talking happily. We show all of them again, right? Ryo, Kita, Nichika, Bocchi, and then see her looking at herself with the guitar. I still find the black and gold one cooler, but it's fine, right? It's a cool looking guitar, and the black suits her, right? It suits Bocchi perfectly. And it's her own, right? That is a great step, right? Once you've made it past the amateur stage where you're like really good at this point and you joined your hobby association or whatever you do, in this case the band, and you're starting to actually feel like this could be your thing, getting your own, that makes you feel a lot more independent, right? A lot more like this is something that could really become your own. If I could repaint the world, nothing as drastic like getting rid of wars, right? I like that, but maybe there's a bit of that too. Can't be an actor or a movie star. I can't even laugh naturally in front of you, for that matter. Okay, we sing a little bit about our worries. What's there for a guy like me to do, or a gal in the case of Bocchi? Yeah, I mean, it's a very fitting song, although it feels like a love song almost, right? But also in a way, right? You can be a love song to music, a love song to all of the experiences she made recently. In like a transformative matter. And we go through all of these sets that we've been going through all this time, right? The school hallways, the playground where they met, the club of Hiroi. We don't see Starry, I think, but we're looking at the telephone poles above Starry, which is great. And where the little spot where she was staying in constantly, right? The little thing like the wall which had graffiti that they made their video in front. She's just walking along, just another day. Just another day to work, and we're looking up, which is a really cool shot of a bridge, and the sky is absolutely blue and free, right? In my opinion, that is a symbol, right? A symbol for like great things to come, right? Everything is open, everything is free. The world has been kind of freed. It's not clouded over anymore. And you do have the sunny, right? When she's walking, you do also see the, I don't know where exactly it was, but you did see when she was walking that she was walking along the river, and the sun is glistening at the riverbed. It's an amazing shot, amazingly symmetrical as well. With the only exception being the little light which is on this side of the screen, and the sun actually, like the sunlight coming from this side. So even could be a symbolism on its own, right? Where it's like we have the blue, wide open sky that is still kind of dark from the night, but the sun is slowly coming in at the beautiful, beautiful sunrise. And I think this is also close to the spot that she had her first street concert on, right? The little advertisement concert she did with Hiroi. With that, it ends, and we have Cloverwork to thank for an amazing anime that sends a great message to everybody out there. Don't give up, right? There's things out there that maybe you could be destined to be very talented in if you put your effort into it, if you put your heart into it. And all the things you're struggling with right now, first of all, they're not insignificant. I think the anime made that clear. They're not insignificant or stupid. They're very understandable and relatable what you're going through. But make sure that you do understand that there's a way out of this, right? If you really want to. And with the right environment and with the right motivation to do so, taking one step after another, right? 1,000 steps, as we've seen in the beginning with the staircase that Bocchi was looking over. She was like, it felt like 1,000 steps. It was only one. What? Take one step after another, one thing after another, and you're gonna get there. And with that, I think I'm gonna end this. This was Bocchi the Rock, and a great anime for everybody who likes funny, moe, music-related anime, right? Friendship-related anime that are about the struggles in life that we go through, oftentimes as teenagers, but even beyond that. And this is a shout out to all of you out there who are struggling with something like that. Go out there, right? Don't worry. I mean, do worry. It's okay to worry, okay? It's okay to worry. Just, you're gonna be okay, okay? You're gonna be okay. I believe, and you should believe too, that you're gonna be okay and you're gonna get out of this, and you do have the strength to do so, like Bocchi did. And with that, I'll be seeing you in the next reaction.